Good morning, everyone. I am Pam Marcucci. I'm the Vice President of Programs at the Jacobs Institute. You'll learn more about the Jacobs Institute during the tour after the panel. Thank you all for being here, panelists and students. We're really excited that you're here. In order to maximize the time with the panel, I'm going to ask each of you to state your name, your title, your organization, talk a little bit about your position, and then talk about how you got there. So if you'd each take like 3 to 4 minutes to kind of go through that, and then we'll open it up to questions and discussion. So can you start?
Yes. Hello, my name is Shantice Foster, currently a team member at M&T Bank. I'm working in the technology department as a release train engineer. I've been there 3 years. And fun fact about me, when I was young like you, I didn't have a dream to go in technology, but my learning journey as I navigated from job to job, I started actually in business. But as I navigated through different positions in the business, I was always drawn to technology. So the role that I play, I actually didn't code. Another fun fact, you don't have to know how to program or code to be employed in technology, but my specialty is working with developers, programmers in a different way of working, which is called agility. So I serve as a coach to the developers to say, let's practice a different way than the old way of what they call old ways of working, and hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit today. So that has been very fulfilling for me in terms of I still get to learn working over the shoulders of developers and the intellect and still work in an innovative space.
And what was your educational pathway to get there?
So my education, I'm actually an alumni from Duville. Again, I have a degree in business management, which is a very diverse degree, and that's one of the things that I encourage when I'm talking to young bright minds as yourself. Make sure that you're diversified in your learning. So I had a business management degree, so you do get a little bit of technology and finance, but I really thought I was going to be a finance person. So I navigated from finance, but what I found at the core of everything that I do, right, there's technology today behind anything you do, so you have to learn it, right? You're going to have to learn it anyway. So again, that's how I kind of gravitated working with developers on the software that, supported finance. Then I went into marketing and all of your apps, apps today, doing that customer facing of like a customer going online and using, looking for their products. So I did that for a international freight forwarding company. So I worked in freight forwarding for a lot of time, which international shipping, global shipping. So, and then from there, I gravitated to IT, and I became a business analyst, which gave me the position of I was able to talk business, but be a translator, right? Working with IT and translating or being in the voice of the customer for our customers to say and tell technology what they wanted. So I've done everything from being from that support role. I've managed IT developers, which is pretty interesting because developers usually want to just talk IT all day, right? But I say all that to say it's just been a wonderful journey of getting, working as that liaison, right, between, if you will, the business world and technology and bring it together and being able to create things on a daily basis.
Thank you.
So me next? Yes. Hi, everybody. How are the friends today? Good? Okay, great. So I'm just trying to think back in my life, there's so much. But what I can tell you is that when I started out, just as a kid, we had a computer in our house. And that, I think, was the difference between other places. Some houses had computers, some houses didn't have computers, but we had a computer. And my grandpa was a tinkerer. And so he liked to go to the basement, and he had like a soldering gun, and he did all this stuff, and he'd say like, come on down the basement and look at what I'm doing. So like, to me, technology in the beginning was like hands-on work, like being able to touch something and figure something out. And that's really what tech has been for me for my whole life, is just figuring out puzzles. And so if you're interested in tech, it's a lot of problem solving. So when I went to high school, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, so we didn't have a lot of tech at all. And I took the 2 computing courses that they had there. After that, I went to college for a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and I wanted to be the computer teacher. And my first job was a computer teacher, which was so fun. I got to hang out, with the students and, play with the apps, and it was like a lot of fun. And then I lost my job. Who fires the computer teacher? Nobody. But they were moving in another direction. So I moved in another direction too, and I decided to go into higher ed. And so I worked in Pennsylvania at a college, and I did the same thing. Instead, I taught freshmen. And after that, I switched and I came home, and I went to Buffalo State, and I taught there, and I've been there now for a very long time. I won't tell you how long, but if you decide to come to Buffalo State, take my classes. So what's my role? Now my role with tech, it's changed so much over the years, and I am with you. You need to be able to adapt with tech. Tech is so much fun. It doesn't matter if you're in healthcare or if you're a programmer, it's just a lot of fun because it's always solving a problem. Every day it's like, what problem am I going to solve today using tech? And I will tell you, if you are in tech, any kind of STEM, any kind of tech, you'll always have a job. It's recession proof. You will always be able to figure it out with your skills. You have a giant skill set. So that's like the #1 reason to go into tech. I will tell you, even when I went for my PhD, I have a PhD in what's called sociology of education. Wow, that is super broad. But what did I focus on? I focus on technology in urban schools. So I took one lens and I put it on something else because I knew that tech would always get me a job, and it did. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Chamberlain, and I think diversifying your education is going to be a theme that's going to continue down this panel, at least for me. I am in a position called a postdoctoral associate at the University at Buffalo, actually at the medical school right over across the street. And I actually just started my position there about 3 months ago. I just completed my PhD at Roswell Park in cancer sciences and biophysics. So when I mentioned that I was diverse, it's because when I was sitting in your spot, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And everything was always related to science for me, but in 8th grade, I wanted to be a microbiologist. And then in 9th grade, I wanted to be a zoologist. And then I wanted to do something with marine animals, because that was interesting. And I always liked science, and honestly, I actually was always veering towards biology, because it was so interesting to me. And then I hit junior year, and I took trig. And all of a sudden I loved math, and that was very weird, because nobody loves math, nobody says that out loud. But I decided I really loved math, and I really liked to problem solve again. Math is, once you get a hold of it, it's just a bunch of problem solving. And so I decided to go to University at Fredonia for a bachelor's in mathematics. And when I was there, one of my professors in physics was like, "You want a physics degree, don't you?" And I was like, "No, I want a math degree." And they were like, "No, you want a physics degree." And I was like, "Sure, I want a physics degree." Because I really like physics, because physics is just math applied. And so I did a dual degree in math and physics, and in my journey, in my education, I still always loved biology. But I was good at math and physics, and people say if you're good at math and physics, you should do that, because you'll be successful. And I really loved biology, and I was like, is there a way I can apply math and physics in biology? And that led me down a wonderful path of finding things like medical physics, which is literally physics and medicine for things like radiation biology and radiation therapy and imaging. And then I found another field called structural biology, which was computational work of looking at very small scale proteins in your body and how they function. And I realized that there's so many ways to apply math and physics into biology. And so I said, score, this is what I want. And so that's why when I was applying into PhD programs, I actually applied into many biophysics related fields where I could use physics and math in biology. And I actually ended up getting to do a really great clinically translative PhD project, so I got the whole breadth, from math all the way to seeing my work in the clinic. And moving forward, I decided that I wanted to stay on the road in biology, and now I am in a position that's going to allow me to utilize a lot more math and physics and coding. I'm working in Python, but understanding more of the background of cancer and how it works in our bodies and how it becomes so resistant. So that's where I am now, and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but but here I am.
Same. Still working on that.
Good morning,
Yeah,
everybody.
you too,
My
I
name
can tell.
is Takesha Leonard. I am a family nurse practitioner. I'm also a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. I am probably like a lot of you guys where I was not sure what I wanted to do in high school, but I knew what I was good at, and I knew I cared about people, and so nursing was one of my main choices. I'm originally from the Bronx, New York, and came up to Buffalo when I was 17 because they offered me a full scholarship, and so that was just priceless for me at that time. And then I obtained my bachelor's in nursing, and I began working at local hospitals, but also realizing that I did not like the administrative part of it and the way hospital systems were run. And so instead of conforming to that, I decided to go back to school and maybe run my own practice. So I went back to school at DeUville University and received my family nurse practitioner, and I did that for many years at a facility called Jericho Road Community Health Center. Again, I am really big on leadership and really big on making changes and not waiting for things around me to change, but being part of the change. So I decided to go back again for my doctorate in health policy and health administration at DeUville in order to actually run the practice. And so as of right now, I am currently the medical director at Jericho Road Community Health Center on the east side of Buffalo. But then there was a lot of racial strife and social turmoil, and I was seeing the impact of mental health on our Black and brown communities, specifically on the east side of Buffalo. Again, I am a fixer. I went back again, y'all. Went back again. I went to UB and just received my postmaster certification as a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner.
Okay.
And so I'm currently also at Gateway Longview, specifically working with our youth, just dealing with things like anxiety, stress, trauma, and all that, and that has been eye-opening for me. So my goal now is to focus on youth, to focus on you guys, to see what you guys need to make you grow and develop. Jericho Road and myself started the first high school medical mentorship program for our East Side students, where we have a summer internship program, a 6-week program, where you guys actually shadow me in my clinic and see my patients with me, and we just learn about all different fields of healthcare. And so that's what I'm doing now, guys, and you know, I'm just glad to see all of you here, so welcome.
I am Carrie Anastasia. I am a senior project manager at the Jacobs Institute, so looking forward to kind of leading some of the tour groups after this panel is over. But my background, I went to UB for biomedical engineering, actually, so I'll backtrack just a 30-second version. I started in physics at Fredonia, and I've never met another female who has started in physics at Fredonia. I didn't last, I will put it that way. I decided when I was in high school, I was really interested in math, or I was really good at math and science. I won't say I was interested in it. I decided because I was good at it that I was gonna be a Disney Imagineer. And I decided, and I applied to the college program, and I looked into it, and I found out if you get into the Disney College program, it's really hard to start in engineering. You start in retail. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then you'd have to kind of build your way up. So I said, well, what else can I use this skill set for that would be useful? And so I decided that I was going to go for mechanical engineering, and I was going to try to get a job at Fisher-Price, which is local. And so looking into schools, I decided I was a little bit afraid of going to a big university like UB, especially in a program like engineering. I didn't feel like I would succeed in a class of 400, 500 people. And so I looked into programs that had kind of alternative methods of reaching that goal, which was this 3-2 program at Fredonia. So I started, and the intention was I'd go for 3 years at Fredonia and 2 years at UB, and after the 5-year program, you would have a bachelor's in physics and a bachelor's in engineering from UB or one of their other partner schools that you would choose to go to. I went to Fredonia for a semester for physics, and I said, what am I doing? This is not for me. I'm not interested in physics. I'm not good at physics. And I left. I transferred to UB after a semester, so completely backtracked on my idea of going to a large university from the start. And I will say that I struggled a little bit. I struggled with the large class sizes and the challenge. It was a challenging academic course, and so I started in mechanical engineering. And one of my first projects was I was on a team of 10 people, and I was the only female on the team. And our job was to take apart a 6-cylinder GM engine. And we had to kind of reverse engineer it and put it back together. And then again, I said, what am I doing? And so at that time, thankfully, UB had just launched their biomedical engineering program. And in parallel to that, my mother was having some health problems, and I found myself spending a lot of time at Roswell and picked up a brochure about Roswell robotics and learned about robotic surgery. And I said, okay, maybe this is something that I can apply my skill set to help people. And I looked into that, and I ended up switching to UB's biomedical engineering program. I was within the second graduating class. And now I think it's one of the top 3 enrolled at the university, which is amazing. And graduated. I spent a lot of time doing research in orthopedics and biomechanics. I was a gymnast, so very interested in how the body moved and how the body works and all sorts of things like that. After my bachelor's degree, I started working. I was an intern at what was Great Batch Medical at the time, which is in Clarence, if anyone's familiar. And I went on for my master's degree in mechanical engineering, so I switched back. And that was only primarily because the department of BME was very new at the time. So I was able to tailor my master's program to be focused in more of a biomechanics realm than mechanics. And so I had my master's in mechanical engineering from UB, and I spent, I think, about 5 years working at Great Batch Medical, and about almost 5 years ago came to the JI. And my role at the JI, in a nutshell, I am a project manager on all of our programs within the JI's I2R, which is the Idea to Reality Center. So that's the component of the JI where if a physician or a startup company has an idea and they don't know how to develop their technology, we kind of bring it in-house, we help them incubate it, we help them develop it. So things like stents for treating heart disease and stroke and any sort of neurovascular care. And so I primarily work with startups and entrepreneurs to help them get their idea off the ground. And we do everything from regulatory support, so early engagement with the FDA, all the way to developing the product, prototyping the product in-house, testing it, doing everything we need to do, submitting to the FDA, and then actually putting it in a patient in a first-in-human study right downstairs. So it's been a really amazing journey, and to see it, something that you're working on come full circle from idea to literally in a patient within your building is an incredible thing to be a part of and witness. So if anyone's interested in biomedical engineering as a career in general, feel free, we can talk afterwards.
Hi, I'm Becky Nappert. I'm a senior environmental engineer at WSP USA. They're located downtown here. They're only a few blocks from this building. Similarly, I had a lot of different interests going into college. I had 4 different ideas for what I'd get my bachelor's degree in. It was math, physics, musical theater, and Spanish. And so I had to narrow that down. And I got my bachelor's in physics and Spanish. But I had a lot of ideas of where I would take that while I was in school. So I taught astronomy, and I was really interested in getting a PhD and teaching college. I worked on some research projects. We did computer modeling of bullets hitting ceramic armor, which is really nitty-gritty programming. And And I also volunteered with our environmental organization. And my senior year, I ended up doing a project where we would put these little data loggers into a PVC tube and throw it in the lake and see how the lake dynamics would change as rains fell and we had different atmospheric events. So I kind of took that and I was like, you know, I can make this physics degree into environmental engineering. So I went to SUNY ESF, which is in Syracuse, for a master's in environmental engineering. And I ended up doing a project that was really like computer focused. So it was computer programming. There's this language called R. It's just the letter R. It's free and it's really easy to learn. There's tons of resources out there. And you can use it for anything. There's a lot of statistical analysis, programming. So I used it to program river water quantities in 5 major rivers in New York State and Ohio that lead into the Great Lakes. And doing that project, I was like, you know what? I don't really like engineering. I'm not sure I want to do this. So I had been working at the time at a Montessori school, working with 3 to 6-year-olds, so kind of like early development and science education. So I was like, maybe science education is it. But I ended up moving back home to Buffalo, and I couldn't really find any jobs that were like science education, exactly what I wanted to do with more like environmental research. So I ended up, through a family friend, hearing about this job as an environmental engineer at Ecology and Environment, and they were bought by WSP in 2020. But it was a company out in Lancaster in one of the first, or the oldest LEED Platinum buildings. And it's really cool. You walk in, there's just plants everywhere, this huge atrium, all this natural light, and I was immediately like, this is where I want to work. So I started working there in 2016, and I've worked on a ton of different projects there. So environmental engineering kind of like sounds like you might get pigeonholed into one specific thing. But I have worked on remediation projects. I have my drone pilot license. I manage habitat restoration projects. So we make more habitat in the Niagara River for increasing bird, frog, fish habitat. I work on lead remediation. And right now I'm going to UB for my master's in sustainability leadership. So my company also helps finance some of that. So that's another option too, is if you're not exactly sure what you want to do, we have people who have associate's degrees, so you just get a 2-year degree in like computer-aided drafting or associate's engineering. Find a job at a company and they will kind of help you grow into what you want to do in STEM fields. But yeah, there's just so many things, and you can keep all of your other hobbies too. I sing with the Buffalo Philharmonic Chorus. You don't have to just dedicate your entire life to STEM, and I think the STEM fields are richer because of your involvement in other fields as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was great. Thank you. So I'd like to open it up for questions. Yes.
Hello, there we go. Just quickly, if you guys look in your booklets, under the page that has questions for the sample questions for the panelists, down at the bottom, there is a form where you can submit anonymous questions. So if you use your phones to go to the website there, you can submit any questions that you want anonymously, and they will be sent up to our fabulous panel. If there's a specific person you want your question directed towards, please put that in your question.
And please, don't be embarrassed. There are no stupid questions. We're all friends here and want to learn, so please don't hesitate. And I think we've got somebody here. Heather, we've got a question here. We've got a question here.
Oh, if you had a skill or a degree in technology, what would be an ideal career path to go into?
Okay. Hi. Depends on what you want to do with technology. So what are you thinking? Okay, technology, right, in general. So I have like many degrees in technology and they're all different and they all went in many different paths. So if you had a degree in technology, you could be a programmer, you could be a project manager, you could be a application developer, you could be an Imagineer. Because it just depends. You can go the art direction, you can go the programming direction, and there's many different ways. And I like what Becky said, that if you're at a job, they can help direct you. And right now, with your teachers can help direct you with your interests.
Yep, it's very vast. You would be surprised. I mean, you could be a hands-on and handle even the hardware piece of it, or just be what they call end-user computing, and that's just helping customers every day navigate right through the systems that they're using. So there's a lot to explore there. I wouldn't say one path is greater than the other. Now, I'm just gonna, some pay more than others. Like, so, if you're looking for more, a developer, a coder, a programmer, right? The salary is more generous these days than some of the other paths that you would go.
I will say that if I could just one last thing. At Buffalo State, we are developing right now, it should be out in fall, computer teacher. So if anybody is interested in computers and you want to take that knowledge back, there's also a shortage of teachers, tech teachers, if you've taken those classes.
We had a couple of questions back here.
What types of challenges have you faced in your career?
Challenges in your career.
I think for me, it would be kind of being the only one that looks like me sitting around a lot of tables and knowing that I belong there regardless. Also, just making sure that I surround myself with people that are always encouraging me to do well. And even in your high school, like make sure that you guys are surrounding yourself with other students that are wanting to do better and wanting to kind of, elevate. But, and then, just being confident in your ability and in your education and, and being able to sit at that table and speak proudly. So I think that's been a challenge for me.
I think for me personally, and I don't know if others would share this sentiment, but I am a new mom, and balancing your societal expectations of being a mother and also having a strong career in STEM is something you learn to adapt and balance to. And knowing that you belong to be doing both of those things and that you can do both of those things, it's definitely been an interesting challenge and adjustment. But.
And I think just speaking off of, not just being a new mom, but being in a STEM field, and especially like if you pursue things like higher education and a PhD, finding a work-life balance is actually, it's a large movement right now that people are reinforcing that you don't need to work a 12-hour day in your PhD every day in order to receive a PhD. You can find that balance. You can find mentors that will help support that balance. And I mean, I did, like we were saying, finding that balance and doing things outside of your career. I do martial arts outside of my career. I'm going for my black belt soon. And I definitely think that was a saving grace throughout my entire PhD because it gave me something outside to look at and to, forget about work for just an hour while I did some workout. And I think that finding that balance through your entire career path, regardless of if it's in STEM or outside of STEM, make sure you have hobbies and things that make you unique.
Right. Anybody else? Challenges?
My question was for Takesha, I think that's her name. You said that you said like a 6-week program that you could shadow. Can you talk more about that?
Oh, sure. So what I realized is that in higher fields of medicine, like nurse practitioner, doctors, dentists, psychiatrists, there's a limited number of Black and brown students. And by the time we're reaching them in the college age, they've either already have decided what career path they were going to take or have veered away from medicine because they didn't have access or opportunities. So I realized that in order to increase those numbers is we have to reach people at your ages, between that 9th and 12th grade, where you guys are trying to figure it out, and then give you guys access and opportunity. So taking you all around Buffalo to meet different professionals in the areas of STEM, so dentists, doctors, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners like myself. And then the experience also included, like I said, shadowing me actually in the clinic, seeing patients, seeing what it was like on a day-to-day basis, and then having good discussions about, what your options are, and then what paths do you need to take to get there. So I think that you guys are at the right age and place in order to kind of discover like who you are, and all you need is access and opportunity. So we create programs for that. Thank you for asking.
Just as a follow-up to that, do all of you know about the Mayor's Summer Youth and the Erie County Summer Youth programs? Because those are really, it's a great way, it's a great pathway to do internships and be paid at the same time. So if you don't know, look into it. And I also have to give a shameless plug to the Jacobs Institute Summer Internship Program. So we have a 2-week program for high schoolers. And if you're interested in learning about that, we bring in different professionals from healthcare to talk about their careers, because it's much more than just doctors and nurses. There's perfusionists and dietitians and PTs and OTs and all kinds of things that really can appeal to different interests. So if you're interested in learning more, please contact us and we'll tell you more.
If we're doing the shameless plug.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, also, I just want to share with you guys that at Roswell Park, they also have a high school internship program for juniors, rising seniors. So if you also are looking into more another. Come to the Roswell table. Yes, please go to the Roswell table and you will find that there. Thank you.
Excellent.
And I'm just going to throw M&T in there. There's a lot of opportunities. M&T, we have a tech academy. Everybody knows that giant building downtown, Seneca One. We partner with a lot of the Buffalo public schools, even the private schools, and bringing you in. There's a lot of, we do informant boot camps. Even in high school, there's opportunities. So you were asking, how do you know? Like, we let you come in through programs and get your hands, just get a feel for it, right? And you don't even have to be that. Doesn't have to even be where your passion lies, but at least for you to explore.
You have coding challenges too.
Yes.
that high school and colleges students can do.
Yep.
Coding challenges, which I
Lots
love.
of opportunities.
I think it's
Yeah.
important. Like when I was your age, I didn't know I could do any of that. I don't even know if they were available.
And
when
get
I was
paid
young.
for it.
Yeah.
It helps you find things that you might really enjoy that you didn't know. Like I didn't know I could find math and physics in biology without some of the internships I did. So.
Yeah.
And they're great ways of seeing what you don't want to do. One of our former interns did an internship last summer, and she's like, oh, now I know I definitely don't want to do that. Well, how would you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spent my summer doing at an architecture engineering firm when I was a mechanical engineering student, and they had me working on putting CAD toilets into a building, and I was like, again, what is happening? What am I doing?
I think that kind of my answer for what's challenging would be just getting in your career. Like getting your foot in the door was really hard.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is everyone just has networking, but there's so many opportunities that you can network. So
That's
all
right.
of these opportunities, and just anyone you meet, if they tell you they have a career in STEM, just pick their brain. Like anybody you ask, there's so many people that are just so excited to find out that there are more people interested, that they're likely willing to give you tons of advice, mentorship, and just really help you on that path and figure out what you do and don't want to do.
I think it's important for you to ask what the career is. I see my people that I graduated with, and I see the careers they're in now, and I'm like, how did they even, one is a physical therapist, I'm like, how did she even know to go to school for that? In my life, there were nurses, there were teachers and engineers. So, and secretaries, things like that. We had traditional careers. I didn't know what a physical therapist was. I didn't know that there was a nurse practitioner. So I'm really interested in all the things that you're going to school for and what you're finishing up too. Look at all the programs and really investigate them, because something might hit you. Absolutely. I might have gone for something totally different had I known that these things exist. And not in a bad way, but I just didn't know that things existed.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be curious and just keep asking, hey, what do you do? Hey, what do you do? Hey, I want to know about that. Nothing is dumb. Everything is good.
And also, most of the colleges and universities allow you to change your mind relatively easily
expect
if
you
you
to,
decide that you want to do that. Yeah, so I mean, they encourage you and support you. So if you decide after a semester this isn't for you, and then another semester and whatever you decided to go to then again still wasn't for you, you still have the option.
We got a
change.
couple of questions that were tweeted in, I think, Emily.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that.
So, have you ever doubted yourself or felt like giving up? And what stopped you from doing so? What do you say to yourself to keep going? What is your drive when work gets stressful? Wow, great question.
Wow.
I can definitely speak on this. During my PhD, I had, there's multiple moments, but I definitely, when you're in certain programs, there's moments where in science specifically, when you're doing experiments and you're supposed to design an experiment, get a result. Never happens that way. Design an experiment, doesn't work. Try something new, doesn't work. Try something new, doesn't work. Try something new. Because you're at the breaking edge of science. You are not doing things that have already been done. You're doing something new that people haven't tried before, and it's novel. And I was I had a big fear of failure. I want to say a PhD almost teaches you that failure is learning.
Yeah.
Right? Is that that's actually, it's not failure. It is learning. You are learning how not to do something. And I had to get over that hurdle. And there's multiple times I feel like throughout different higher education programs where you're like, can I get over this hurdle? Can I take this next step? And the fact of the matter is that we're all going through it, and we all, don't know what the next step is, and that's how you grow.
But other people don't tell you that they're nervous.
No, but people,
They don't
everyone
te-
else looks so confident.
Right, they all look confident, and they all look confident, they all look like they've got it together, and you feel inside like you don't have it. And it's really important to remember, don't let them steal your dream.
Yes,
That's right.
Don't
Definitely.
let them steal your dream.
agreed.
As women, do you guys ever get treated differently because you guys go into a certain career and looked at differently?
Why, yes.
Can
Can you repeat it again?
one more?
Do you guys get treated differently as women going into a career with
Absolutely.
mostly there's only one or two women there?
Yeah, I'm gonna just date myself. I mean, first and foremost, we are all women here, right? And so
Nothing against the dudes.
Yes, yeah, nothing
Nothing
against
against the dudes in the room.
but for a long time, I remember entering the workforce, and it wasn't even the STEM careers, but just being a woman. I think you talk about being at the table, and you look around, and there's nobody there that looks like you, right? They talk a little differently than you, and just making sure you have a presence. And there was a lot of times where I had to fight at that table and be bold, right? And say, no, I am here. I have an idea, right? And even being dismissed sometimes, like saying something, because it's a real thing. I'm just gonna, saying something, and then 2 minutes later, somebody's saying the same thing in a different way, right? And calling it their own, like you weren't there. But as I got older and mature, right, I just had to boldly start calling those actions out to say, simply, I just said that 5 minutes ago, right? And thanks for wasting our time, and we can move it. But there's a certain confidence that you got to build up to, and I'm here to talk to you now for you to achieve it sooner than later, and not go through these phases of these emotions of am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Because you are.
That's right.
And so that just goes with the challenges. I'm hoping, right, as women, if we arrive, right, and we get welcome to the table more, it won't be a struggle for your generation, as much. But I'm trying to tell you, you have to, women are paving the way, and you have to keep on paving the way behind us to make sure that, right, that we're equals.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if I would just like to throw this out there. Just when you see this stuff happening, try and have your comeback ready. So, no, I'm serious. This is absolutely serious. Have your comeback ready. So I was teaching, and I had a teaching assistant, and we were the same age. And that bothered him because he hadn't finished his degree and I had, right? So there was a power struggle there. And so he was saying to me, well, don't you know about this new product that came out? It has this capacitor and this blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, hardware person. I'm not a hardware person. I'm a teaching person, and I'm a software person. I'm going to hire people to do those jobs for me. That was my comeback, right? Because nothing against the hardware people, but like dudes like facts. They like facts, they like trivia, I have a son. He's like, he does this to me all the time. I'm like, dude, I love that you know all that stuff. I'm different in tech. And that's really important to remember. Like, what are you good at? And just because you're good at something, own it. Own it that you're good at that. Right? And then just say, that guy was just trying to be rude. So I had to put him in his place. But the point, I had to put him in his place. But the point is that he was really good at that and I'm really good at this. So why can't we just work together? We didn't have to be competing.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Right? So just remember, you're good at what you're good at. Be proud of it.
Okay, so my question, I want to be a pediatric surgeon, but like, what would you say to somebody like to help them get through all those years of school? Because it can be hard and like you want to give up. So I don't know if you guys have any advice on that.
My first thing for going through law school, you guys definitely some have more degrees than I do. I made small goals. I made goals of getting through my bachelor's, and then my PhD. They break it up. My goal was get through the classes. My goal was finish the preliminary exam. My goal was get a publication. And your route will be different, but you don't have to necessarily look at the finish line. Look at what's directly in front of you and take that moment to learn that knowledge, to be in that presence, because if you're always going to look at the finish line, then you're going to pass by all that school and miss out on everything. So
I think my idea would be, like I said before, just make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that are on the same path. That is really important because school is hard. I mean, it's hard for you guys now, but college and getting our doctorates and all that stuff, it is hard. So I always made sure that I aligned myself with people that were doing the same things. Not that I didn't make time to have friends and have fun and things like that, but that was always after the goal was accomplished. So just make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that are encouraging you, ready to study with you. Those that are hanging out, that's fine, but today I need to stay in and study it, and I can do that another time. Because trust me, it will be done. And once you get done, then you can enjoy all the riches of that. But I had to put a lot of things on hold to get through that path, and now you get to enjoy life, so. Yeah.
So I think we have time for one or two more questions. Got a question down here?
Yes. So,
Can you restate the question?
Okay, she wants to be a pediatric registered nurse. What advice would I give her? So make sure that you focus a lot on your sciences and your maths, but also keeping in mind that you allow yourself the ability to falter a little bit. Don't be so hard on yourself. If this is your path, you work as hard as you can. You do all the things that we talked about, surround yourself with good people, and you forge that path. But every now and again, if you have a setback, be okay with that setback. Just as an aside, when I took my first RN boards, I failed them. And I was like completely devastated. Like, I am not good enough to do this if I can't pass this exam. But I went back and realized, well, how much did you really study for that exam in order to pass it? And was it realistic? So the second time I took it, I did fine, and then subsequent exams I did fine. So focus on your maths and your sciences, surround yourself with people that want to do the same thing, and then get opportunities where you can actually see what that looks like. Because you might go in and be like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing, or maybe I like nursing, but maybe a different path. The last thing I would say is keep your options open. Because I became a family nurse practitioner, which means that I can take care of babies, adults, anything. When you limit yourself to just one area, then it does also limit you to that one area. And maybe 5 years from now, you might want to do something different. So just keep your options open, but look for opportunities where you can explore that a little bit better. Okay?
I think we've got one more that's on the, I like this one. Is there something you don't like about your job?
I can chime in on that one. So I've just started project management like a year or two ago, and I really don't like administration of projects. So budgeting, getting subcontracts set up, all the like day-to-day administrative work that is involved in a STEM field. And I think the key part in not letting that bog you down is just comes back to like your community. So your community and getting through school is critical to getting to your career, and your community in your job is critical to getting your work done. And there's so many people I can lean on, you know. I'm out of like budgetary energy. I need somebody else to handle this today. And I can reach out to someone and say, hey, can you handle this? I'll come back to it tomorrow. So I think that definitely helps.
I hate paperwork. And if I just do it as soon as I get it, I have to do it like anything, any paperwork. As soon as it comes on my desk, I do it immediately, because otherwise, if it goes to the side, it's not getting done. So, I mean, and that's like with schoolwork too. If you don't like something, if you don't want to do it, just do it, and do it now.
I think sometimes for me it's the clarity of roles. I'm a medical director, so that means I direct the day-to-day operations of my practice. I'm not an electrician, I'm not a plumber, I'm not security, but you get called for all of those things. So sometimes you just have to remind people, if there's a leak in the basement, don't call Takesha. Like, I am not the person. So I think that's probably one of the things I don't like the most about my job.
I think to echo your statement on project management, I'm a project manager by title, but an engineer by background, and I started my career in engineering. And I think one of the biggest kind of challenges that I face right now is that outside, and we're primarily at the JI, we're service provider. So we have clients that come to us and we're working on their projects. And the project manager is usually the person who does the, interfacing with the client, does the budgetary, does all the administrative things. And I've struggled with sometimes that the client just thinks I'm a secretary. I'm like, I'm not, but also like I have the same background as you. And so advocating for my role at the table is important, and to understand that I'm not just here to schedule your meetings and do other things, but I actually can provide value to the project.
So I think I'm going to close with a question. I'd like each of you, if you could give your young self, your high school self, some advice, what would it be?
For me, it would have been to take more time. My generation was the generation of you have to go to college. Got to go to college right after high school. That's what you have to do. You got to get a degree. You can't get a job without a degree. So I went to college and I got a degree. And then, I was told in my undergraduate, you got to go for a PhD. You're smart. You got to do it. You don't need a master's first. Just hop into a PhD program. You'll have to pay for a master's. PhD might be paid for. You've got to get that degree. And I listened because that's what I was told to do, and I was told that I'd be good at it. And I'm not saying that I missed opportunities, and obviously I would have made all the same decisions again because that's the information I knew at the time. But I think if I would have gotten a master's, I would have been able to, again, explore other areas of biology, other areas of physics and math. And I definitely didn't pigeonhole myself. I'm always taking, my career now is completely different than my PhD, but I wish I would have had more time to just do an internship for a year and work in a lab for a year and try out a different set of techniques for a year. And I think that could have made me more diverse as a scientist. And so take your time. It's not a race. And like everybody here has said, they've made constant decisions of changing their career paths and everything throughout their lives, and there's no rush to get to the finish line. So
I would echo that statement. My brother took a very different path than I did, and he didn't know what he wanted to do. And so he went to a community college for 2 years and tried to figure it out, because he said, that way I'm not spending a lot of money while I try to figure out what I like to do. And he found it. He ended up at Buff State in computer information systems or something like that. So that's the kind of point is that he's looking back and he's like, well, I'm really glad I did that, because I didn't, without knowing what I wanted to do, I didn't spend a fortune on going to a private university. I figured that out and then kind of made it efficient that way. So that's not something that I guess in my generation really wasn't pushed. It was like, you're applying to Columbia, you're applying to UB, Cornell, all those things.
Stanford.
So it was nice to see that pathway that worked out just as well for him, and now he's very happy in his career. So different ways of doing things.
I would tell young Ramona, don't let the turkeys keep you down. And I mean that. The turkeys can be anybody, right? It can be a man, a woman, it can be somebody. I mean, I can think of people who told me, like, yeah, you're not good enough for this program, or I remember somebody telling me, like, oh, you're going for that degree, why would you want that? Like, those are the turkeys. Don't let the turkeys get you down. The turkeys.
I think I would tell my younger self that if you work hard enough, you can have it all. You can have the family. I have 5 boys. I don't know if I shared that, but I'm a mom of 5 sons, and I have a great career, and I love my life. And it took a lot of hard work. It was a lot of stress, a lot of self-doubt, and eventually, if you pull through, you can have the life that you want. So.
I would have definitely told myself just to embrace my failures. When I was that young, like, failures felt like such a big not deal. But to embrace them and learn from them, because it just makes you better in the end. So, yeah, not to be scared of it.
Absolutely.
Well, good. Well, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the panelists for your time. I want to thank students, great questions and interaction and engagement. Thank you, chaperones, who I forgot to mention before, for bringing the students today and taking time to do something a little bit different. Now we're going to break up into our groups and do the tabling, which is a great opportunity to learn about different internship opportunities and educational pathways. And then we'll also be doing the tours of the Jacobs Institute, so you can learn more about what we do here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I get one discount of everyone's. Sure. I get 4 in the back.